To ABC News, I'm Miriam Korowa. It's been another record day of new infections in New South Wales, once again breaking the record for the highest daily caseload in the pandemic. 830 new locally acquired cases have been detected and another 3 people have died, including a man aged in his 60s. There are 36 new cases in the state's west, the majority of which are in Dubbo, and there are 2 new infections in the far west of the state. The state's health minister has praised people for coming forward in record numbers for vaccinations. The pace of vaccination is now among the fastest in the world, with more than 5.8 million doses administered. Close to 59% of people have received 1 dose so far.
I'm quite confident that as we move forward to get to that 80%, we will have a lot more normality back in our lives, and it's literally only, well, it's weeks away now. So if our community keeps getting vaccinated the way they are at the moment, New South Wales is going to be looking pretty good by October, November. So I think I'm really encouraged by the positivity in the community in getting vaccinated.
Authorities are calling for young people in the LGAs of concern to come forward to get vaccinated. Many say they're motivated to get the jab to help ease lockdowns.
I think it's a great opportunity that the government's putting forth at the moment for people in the LGAs of concern to actually receive that privilege. So I encourage people my age to go forth and get the jab. I think it's the only way out at the moment, especially in the current situation, 8 weeks going on to 9 weeks in a lockdown. I think it's the best way out.
I think at first I thought there was a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, but now it's kind of seeming never ending. That light's getting a little bit further away. So I think just getting vaccinated, if that's kind of going to give us that incentive to get out of lockdown, yeah, absolutely, I think that's pushing me.
Victoria has recorded 65 new cases as it battles outbreaks across Melbourne and regional Victoria. Only 12 cases had been in isolation during their infectious period, and 21 are in the growing Shepparton cluster. 27 people are in Melbourne hospitals. There are concerns that yesterday's protests in Melbourne could become a super spreader event. More than 250 people were arrested. Victoria's Chief Police Commissioner says it's the most violent protest he's seen in 20 years.
A very small number, I believe, from what I've been briefed on, were families and a couple of children. The vast majority, by and large, I've been briefed, were men 25 to 40, angry men who came in with intent to cause trouble, to confront and to attack police.
Hundreds of people have taken part in anti-lockdown protests on the Queensland-New South Wales border. Hannah Palmer reports from Tweed Heads.
We're at the tail end here of what was a fairly significant protest on the New South Wales-Queensland border. Up to 1,000 people gathered to protest the Queensland laws that are effectively creating a line between the two states. People are concerned about loved ones they are unable to visit and about accessing their livelihoods over the border.
We're separating families, we're destroying businesses and economy. It's time that we take a really hard look at what the long-term repercussions of these lockdowns are doing.
I want to see this united again. I would love to see Queensland and New South Wales as together. It's always been twin towns and it's really created a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
About 50 police were watching on the protesters, and there was not a lot to be seen in the way of mask wearing or social distancing. However, the protest remained largely peaceful.
The Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, has called on the states to stick to the plan to ease restrictions once vaccination targets are reached, as a split emerges over the pathway out of lockdowns. Under National Cabinet's plan, lockdowns will ease and borders will gradually reopen once 70% of the population is vaccinated. But some leaders have expressed concerns the modelling behind the targets is based on lower case numbers than those being seen in the New South Wales outbreak. The Prime Minister and Chief Medical Officer have both dismissed the suggestion the plan will need to be redrawn.
The advice that we have from the Doherty Institute is the starting point does not ultimately alter the conclusions of the modelling. And so, of course, we continue to always update these things. So we're best informed about how to manage the public health response.
Does this need to go back to the drawing board? The answer is absolutely not. The assumptions, of course, with all modelling can be changed. And sensitivity analysis, that's the technical term for what is being done by the Doherty Institute, can be relatively easily done. The general principles, and yes, I have had a discussion with Jodie McVernon about this, remain the same.
But the opposition leader wants clarity, calling for the Prime Minister to release the data.
The Prime Minister has written, "Rising cases need not impact our plan to reopen." Now, he says this is based upon updated advice, but he hasn't given that advice to the National Cabinet or released it publicly. Australians are looking for certainty. No one wants to be locked down for a day longer than is necessary, but they need to know what the advice is based upon.
Debate remains over the long-term plan to ease restrictions after the New South Wales Premier suggested we need to learn to live with the Delta variant.
And at 70% vaccination rates and 80% vaccination rates, then Australia is able to move out of what is really an unsustainable situation. You can't live with lockdowns forever. And at some point, you need to make that gear change.
What's happened in New South Wales is obviously tragic and very difficult for the people there. But there's an Australia outside of New South Wales, and we're all doing our best to keep the virus out. It's only New South Wales that is not. They're letting down the entire country, the New South Wales government. It's very, very debilitating for the Federation and for everyone else that's trying to do the right thing.
New Zealand has recorded 21 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the number of community cases there to 72. All except one of the new cases are in Auckland. The other is in the capital, Wellington. New Zealand is under a strict lockdown until midnight on Tuesday, and Auckland residents are being warned to expect an extension.
Delta is here and it is trying to move fast. People who have been at locations of interest or contacts of positive cases are spread throughout New Zealand. So we are all in this together. But we've beaten COVID-19 before, and we can do it again if we all continue to play our part.
More than 300 Australians and Afghan interpreters have been evacuated from Afghanistan overnight. The total number of people evacuated from Kabul by Australia now stands at 550. But the US Embassy is advising Americans not to travel to Kabul airport because of potential security threats. The Taliban has set up checkpoints on the main road from the city to the airport, making it difficult for governments to repatriate their citizens.
Crowds, chaos, confusion. The scene at Kabul airport grows ever more volatile as thousands of Afghans clamour to leave the country. Taliban fighters are guarding the outside of the perimeter, but even some people with valid travel documents are not getting through. Britain's ambassador, Sir Laurie Bristow, has been helping to process applications. He says the evacuation is the biggest challenge he's ever faced. But a Pentagon briefing said the Taliban had so far not prevented the evacuation.
We have had no hostile interactions, no attack and no threat by the Taliban. We remain vigilant. We also have not experienced any additional security incidents.
Elsewhere in Kabul, normal life is slowly returning, but banks have been shut and cash machines empty. There have also been reports of hospitals struggling without enough women turning up for work. Taliban fighters, for so long part of a violent insurgency, are in control, seen everywhere on the streets. The group's co-founder and political chief, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, has arrived in Kabul. He's expected to form part of the new Taliban-dominated government. He spent the last few years leading the Taliban delegation at peace talks with the US in Qatar. The Taliban don't yet control the entire country. The Panjshir Valley north of Kabul is once more a centre of resistance to their rule. Anti-Taliban forces claim to have retaken 3 districts in the north. Back at the airport, time is running out for the evacuation. Once it ends and the world's attention shifts elsewhere, many fear that life under the Taliban is going to get a lot harder.
Thousands have turned out to rally in Perth to express concern for the crisis unfolding in Afghanistan. Many are calling on the Australian government to increase humanitarian visas. Keen Burke reports from Perth.
Black, red, green, Afghanistan! Black, red, green, Afghanistan!
Thousands have marched through the streets of Perth today, calling on the federal government to do more to support those fleeing the unfolding humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. Key among organisers' requests is for the government to dramatically increase the number of humanitarian visas it's willing to offer.
Australia stands with Afghanistan! I'm the one to help you! I'm the one to help you! Save Afghanistan! Save Afghanistan!
Prime Minister Scott Morrison has so far pledged at least 3,000 visas to those fleeing the conflict, but organisers here would like to see that rise as high as 20,000. Today's march is happening not too far from where 99 evacuees from Afghanistan, mostly Afghan nationals, are completing their 14 days of hotel quarantine after arriving in Perth earlier this week.
Ash Barty has continued her strong build-up to the US Open by reaching the final of the WTA event in Cincinnati. The Wimbledon champion defeated German Angelique Kerber 6-2, 7-5 and is yet to drop a set in the tournament.
Ash Barty is into the final in Cincinnati.
I love seeing all the kids out here, massive smiles on their faces, and it reminds me of just how much I love this sport as well. Really happy to get through in the end, and to be playing for a title here in Cincinnati is awesome.
Barty's opponent in the final will be the unseeded Swiss player Jill Teichmann. On the satellite image, a trough is causing showers and storms to develop and winds to strengthen over South Australia, Western Victoria and Tasmania. Warm winds ahead of an abrupt cold change are filtering over southern and eastern parts of the country. Looking around the country for tomorrow, in Queensland, mostly sunny and warm in the east with showers clearing in the west. Clearing showers and mild temperatures for New South Wales and the ACT. Storms and winds expected for Victoria with cold temperatures inviting small hail. In Tasmania, cold and windy conditions across the state with showers and storms expected. In South Australia, strong winds along with showers and storms and clearing showers in the west. In Western Australia, sunny and cool weather in the south and hotter temperatures in the north. For the Northern Territory, the top end will be sunny with hot conditions, milder weather over the rest of the territory. Looking ahead to Tuesday in the capital cities. In Brisbane, partly cloudy, a chance of showers. A high chance of rain for Sydney, Canberra and Melbourne. Cloudy with showers possible for Hobart and Adelaide. Sunshine in Perth and Darwin will be partly cloudy, a top there of 33. That is the latest from ABC News. Remember, you can also keep up to date at news.abc.net.au and on iView. I'm Miriam Korowa. Stay with us for Stan Grant's News Channel special, The Fall of Afghanistan.